Nikolaj Coster-Waldau, thank you so much for joining us. Of course, you've had a very successful television and film career. You don't need an introduction. But there's another side of you, which is the many years that you've dedicated to humanitarian causes and also climate. And the obvious question, certainly to me, is why?
Well, because I think it's important, because it's something that's always... I've had an interest in this. I think it affects all of us. And that's why when I was asked by the UNDP if I wanted to be a Goodwill Ambassador in 2016, I instantly said yes, because I believe in the UN. I believe in the international, coming together. But the thing is, I wasn't quite sure about the DP. And the United Nations Development Program is the biggest aid agency in the world, and I didn't know enough about them, so I had to also educate myself.
I'm happy you said yes immediately. You've been doing this work for now almost 10 years.
Yes.
But you said, I believe in the work that the UN does.
Yes.
Why? And there's a political reality behind this. I don't want to get too quick into the politics, but for a year now, the Trump administration has been very vocal saying we consider that this is basically now woke club. The Secretary General is not.
I don't understand how you can call it a woke club. It was built on the ruins of the Second World War, and it's the whole idea behind when you look at the Charter of the UN. It's about let's come together. Let's not fight. Let's talk it out. Let's use diplomacy. And of course, is the UN perfect? No. Does it need reform? Absolutely. Is it a good idea to have a Security Council with 5 members that are just stuck there and can always veto? No, it's a terrible idea. But the alternative, where we just go out and all try to fight for ourselves, we've done that before the UN. It's not a good idea, and I think we have to insist on communication.
So you feel very strongly about this. That's what I'm picking up from you.
Yeah, don't you? You don't believe in the UN?
But the question may be...
No. I can ask you a question, because but just before we start, you asked me something which I thought was really interesting. I think that could be because you said at the Berlinale there was artists being asked these questions, and some of them struggled to answer, and you were like,
very hard.
How can they not answer this? But you do this for a living, and you don't want to answer this. You don't believe in the UN?
In a way, I have to stay impartial, but I can't say there is a big debate about the UN. There's a board of peace now that has come up. It seems the world is split as to what is the functionality. But in your experience,
do you think there's a that he's been what do you call that thing when people make fun on the internet when they're trolling? Do you think the choice of words to call it the board of peace? Do you think that's trolling? If just hear it out loud, board of peace. We're done with peace. We just want to get rich quick. Is that it?
So is a world now where you look at it is about money now?
Well, I guess if you're cynical, you say it's always been about money somehow, right? The power grab. But that's also why we say let's get together. We have to find a way where it's not just the strongest and the biggest that control the world, where we actually all have a seat at the table, and that's why the UN is important.
And in your experience, would you go, it's been a force for good in specific cases that you've seen yourself, that you can go back and say, I saw a difference specifically with my own eyes in multiple occasions?
Yes, of course. If you look at recent history, like the Paris Agreement, the whole world coming together to say, listen, we have to deal with climate change, we have to do something about this. Now, yes, the US have left and have rejoined, and then they left again. But the whole world is moving in this direction and standing up, and I think that is very positive.
2019, there was a big green wave. Every politician was jumping on this cause. It was good electorally, but now it sort of has disappeared. Nobody talks about a green planet. It's
Why
a
do
green
you think
industry.
that is? I can ask you that without you being...
There's been huge social pushback, of course, connected to what people perceive as a sort of a very expensive energy. The world has changed because of the war in Ukraine.
But I just think if you speak to young people today, I think a lot of young people are very concerned about, but for some reason it stopped being discussed in news outlets.
So maybe the media also lost interest.
Well, I think there's a lot of financial incentives involved with this. I think when the US go out as aggressive as they had and say, listen, you cannot use the word climate change anymore in any official documents in the US. If you have these SDGs in your companies, we will not do business with you. Yeah, that is going to have huge effects on also the media companies, and we've seen that in the US, but also in Europe.
And then now as a final question, of course, you travel the world. When you look at Europe, how do you see Europe evolving? I know it's a very difficult question, but I've got to ask you.
Listen, it's funny this thing, because we're talking about I think that discussion is very important. I think that it's a beautiful thing. Europe is so many countries. it's not like we can't just go like they do in the US, where one guy says, well, this is how we're going to do it, and now we're going to do this. No, we have to talk it out, we have to discuss, then we find a way. But I think that is a quality. That is the insisting on democracy, insisting on discussion. And I think that if you look at the numbers of people living in the EU, in Europe, if you look at the economics, we are incredibly powerful.